ॐ शुक्लां भरधरं विष्णुं शशिवर्णं चतुर्भुजं प्रसन्नवदनं ध्यायेत् सर्वविघ्नोपशान्तये। ॐ सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करभावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। अगजाननपद्मार्कं गजाननमहर्निशम् अनेकदन्तं भक्तानामेकदन्तमुपास्महे। श्रीमहागणपतये नमः। गुरवे सर्वलोकानां विषजे भवरोगिणां निधये सर्वविद्यानां श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुं। ज्ञानानन्दमयं देवं निर्मलस्फटिकाकृतिम् आधारं सर्वविद्यानां श्रीहयग्रीवमुपास्महे। श्रीहयग्रीवमूर्तये नमः। सरस्वती नमस्तुभ्यं वरदे कामरूपिणि विद्यारम्भं करिष्यामि सिद्धिर्भवतु मे सदा। श्रीमहासरस्वत्यै नमः। उमाकोमलहस्ताब्जसम्भावितललाटकं हिरण्यकुण्डलं वन्दे कुमारं पुष्करस्रजं। வெற்றிவேல் முருகனுக்கு ஹரஹரோஹரா. லோகவீரியம் மகாபூஜ்யம் சர்வரக்ஷாகரம் விபும் பார்வதி ஹிருதயானந்தம் சாஸ்தாரம் பிரணமாம்யகம். சுவாமியே சரணமையப்பா. வாகர்த்தாபிவ சம்பிரக்தௌ வாகர்த்த பிரதிபத்தயே जगतः पितरौ वन्दे पार्वती परमेश्वरौ। श्री पार्वती परमेश्वराभ्यां नमः। कोमलं कूजयन् वेणुं श्यामलोऽयं कुमारकः वेदवेद्यं परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। अस्मद्गुरुचरणारविन्दाभ्यां नमः। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। श्रीकृष्ण गोविन्द हरे मुरारे श्रीनाथ नारायण वासुदेव। पीताम्बरं करविराजितचक्रशङ्खकौमोदकी सरसिजं करुणासमुद्रं राधासहायम् अतिसुन्दरमन्दहासं वातालयेशम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। कृष्णो रक्षतु मां चराचरगुरुः कृष्णं नमस्ये सदा। कृष्णेनैव सुरक्षितोऽहमसकृत् कृष्णाय दत्तं मनः। कृष्णादेव समुद्भवो मम विभो कृष्णस्य दासोऽस्म्यहं। कृष्णे भक्तिरचञ्चलास्तु भगवन् हे कृष्ण तुभ्यं नमः। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। नम्राणां सन्निधत्ते सततमपि पुरस्तैरणभ्यर्थितानपि अर्थान् कामानजस्रं वितरति परमानन्दसान्द्रां गतिं च। इत्थं निःशेषलभ्यो निरवधिकफलः पारिजातो हरे त्वं क्षुद्रं तं शक्रवाटी ध्रुममभिलषति व्यर्थमर्त्यव्रजोऽयं। श्रीगुरुवायूरप्पा शरणं। श्रीभट्टपादम् अनिशं हृदि भावयामि। वंशीविभूषितकरात् नवनीरदाभात् पीताम्बरात् अरुणबिम्बफलादरोष्टात् पूर्णेन्दुसुन्दरमुखात् अरविन्दनेत्रात् कृष्णात् परं किमपि तत्त्वमहं न जाने। കൈരണ്ടും കുപ്പി ഞാൻ വീണ്ടുമീറക്കുന്നു നീരജലോചന നിന്നോടായി. ഏതീനു മഞ്ഞനെ കുമ്പീടേണ്ടാത്തോരോ രീതിയിൽ നീ എന്നെ പാലിക്കെന്നായി. കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ ജയ കൃഷ്ണ ഹരേ. Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I think we have to do a quick review of 73 and 77, right? Srilata Garu, can you do one, and Shobha, can you do one?
Yes.
I can do 73, Rajesh Garu.
That was a little tough, the other one, but I'll try. Ragam matra konjam correct pannidunga.
Sure, no problem. Yeah.
I will do 73. Okay.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Dasakam 73, Mathurapura Yatra Varnanam. Nishamayata Vatayana Vartam, Brushamarta Pashupala Balikastaha, Kimidam Katham Vitimaha, Samaveta Paridevitanya Kurvan, Karuna Nidhireshananda Sunuhu, Katamasman Visrujedananyanataha, Batanah Kimudaivamewa Masit, Dititwaswad Gatamanasa Vilepuhu.
Shilata Garu, that last line, the Daivam Asit, you're ending, right? So it becomes
Yes.
iti thastvat.
Oh, yeah, I see. Iti, okay. Iti tasvat Vatamanasa Vilepuhu, Charamaprahare Pratishtamanaha, Sahapitra Nijamitra Mandalaischa, Paritapabharam Nitambininam, Samayishyan Vimuchas Sakhayamekam, Achiradupayami Sannidhimbo, Bhavita Sadhumayaiva Sangami Shrihi, Amrutam Nidhau Nimajjayishe, Drutamityashvasita Vadhura Karshihi.
The third line, first word, right? Amrutam bunidhau.
Okay. Amrutambu Nidhau. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Savishada Bharam Sayachan Muchaihi, Atiduram Vanita Bhirikshamanaha, Mruduti Dishi Patayanna Pangan, Sabalo Krura Ratena Nirgato Bhuhu.
Third line, second, taddishi. Mridu taddishi. Double da.
Taddishi. Okay. Anasa Bahulena Vallavanam, Manasa Chanugatota Vallabhanam, Vanamarta Mrugam Vishanna Vruksham, Samatito Yamunata Mayasihi, Niyamaya Nimajyavarini Tvam, Abhivikshya Taratepi Gandineyaha, Vivisho Janikim Vidam Vibhoste, Nanu Chitram Tvavalokanam Samantat.
Third line, the first line, the first word, be vasho. I think you said be visho by mistake. Be vasho jan.
Vivasho, yeah. Punaresha Nimadya Punyashali, Purusham Tvam Paramam Bhujanga Bhoge, Arikambu Gadhambu Jaispurantam, Surasiddhau Gaparitamalu Loke, Satadha Paramatma Saukya Sindhau, Vinimagna Pranuvan Prakara Bhedaihi, Avilokya Punascha Harsha Sindhoho, Anuvrutya Pulakavruto Yayau Tvam, Kimushi Tilima Mahanjaleyat, Pulako Saviti Choditena Tena, Atiharsha Niruttarena Sardham, Rathavasi Pavanesha Pahi Mam Tvam. Sri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha.
Sri Krishna Parabrahmane Namaha. Dasakam 77, Jarasandhadi Yuddha Varnanam. Saindaryastadunam chiram smaradurayaha, Yadabhusu lilatat muddavena sardam, Avasam tvada Dupagamotsavam sadaiva, Dhyandhya Pradidinavasa Sajjikayaha.
Shobhan, the first word, Sairandhryas. Sairan.
Yes, Sairandaryastadanu.
Sorry, Daryas la. Dryas. It's like, it's not a full dha, it's a half dha, right? So, Sairandhryas.
Sairandryas
Yeah.
tadanuchi.
Yeah.
Paraya Yadabhusulalita muddavena sardam, Avasam tvada Dupagamotsavam sadaiva, Dhyayandyah pradidinivasa sajjikayaha, Upagade tvai purna manoradam, Pramadasmam sampramakam prapayodaram, Vividamanana adadadi muda, Rahasitam ramayak chakrushe sukam, पृष्टावरं पुनरसा ववृणोद्वरादि भूयस्त्वया सुरदमेव निशान्तरेषु सायुज्यमस्विधिवदेन् बुध एव कामं सामीप्यमस्त्वनि शमिविद्यभिनाब्रवीत् किम् ततो भवान् देव निशाशु काशुचित् मृगीत्सृशं तां नृपृतं विनोदयन् अदादुपश्लोक इति श्रुतं सुदं स नारदात् साद्वदतन्द्रवित् बभौ अक्रूरमन्त्रमिदोद फलोत्तवाभ्याम् अभ्यार्चितो बहुनुतो मुदितेन निदेन एनं विसृज्य विपदागत पाण्डवे अवृद्धं विभो तदा धृतराष्ट्रचेष्टाम्.
On the fourth line, Vibedita. Okay, I think you said Vibodita by mistake. Vibedita.
वृद्धं विवेदित तदा धृतराष्ट्रचेष्टाम् विगादादाज्ञामानुतु प्रथमसुहृदो भोज नृपतेः जरासन्ते रुन्दत् अनवधिरुषा नन्ददमधुराम् रदार्यैर्योर्लब्धैः कदिभगवसत् फलत्वं बलयुतः त्रये विंशद्यशो हरिणीं तदुपनीं समहृदाः.
maybe the work திரும்பி இந்த stanza try பண்ணுங்க. Vigataj Jamatu. And for the other couple of words, and then the second line, right? Rundatyanavadhi.
Sure. Rundat anavadhi rushanande tamadura.
Rushandhe, that just flows together. Rushandhe, Rusha ande is correct only, but it'll have to be set together. So Rushandhe Maturam.
Rushandhe Madura.
Third line, first two lines are okay. Third line மட்டும் சொல்லுங்க. Rathadhyair Dyor Labdaih sound.
Radhadhyair Dyor Labdaihi Kadibay.
Visarga aihi illa. You just put the ich sound, right? So Labdaih Katipaya.
Okay, he put it again. Sorry. Yeah, sure. Radhadhyair Dyor Labdaihi Kadibaya balastvam balayudah Trayo vimshadyashau hinim Tadubaninam Samahrudaha.
Again, third line நீங்க அந்த ஹீன் எனக்கு சவுண்ட் கேக்குறது அது just try to avoid that. Labdai.
Radhadhyair labdai kadibaya balayut trayo vimshadyashau hinam tadubanidam samahrudah baddam baladada balena balottaram tvam bhuyo balotya marasena mumochitainam निश्शेष दिग्जय समाहृत विश्व सैन्यात् कोन्यस्तदोहि बलपौरुष वांस्तदानीं हृदयोऽपि नृपै प्रणुन्नो युद्धं त्वया वदित षोडश कृत्व एवम् अक्षौहिणी शिवास्य जगन्त विष्णो सम्भूय सैगनवति त्रिशतं तदानीम् अष्टादेशस्य समरे समुपेयुषि त्वं दृष्ट्वा पुरोद यवनं यवना त्रिकोट्या द्वष्ट्राविदाभ्य पुरमाशु पयोधि मध्ये तत्रादयोग भरद स्वजनान नैक्षीः पत्यां त्वं पद्ममाली चकितैव पुरा निर्गतो धावमानो लेचोशेनो ट्यून சொல்லுறடா ராஜா.
கரெக்ட் தான். you started correct only. பத்भ्यां त्वं पद्ममाली चकित इव पुरा निर्गतो धावमानो
लेचेशेनानुयातो वद सुहृद विहीनेन शैलनैलेशी सुप्ने नाक्रियाः हतेन धृतमदमुचुकुन्देन भस्मीकृतेऽस्मिन् भूयास्मै गुहान्ते सुललितवपुषादस्तिदेषु भक्तिभाजे ऐश्वागोऽहं विरक्तोऽस्मि अखिल नृपसुखे त्वत्प्रसादैककाङ्क्षी हा देवादिस्तु अन्तं वरविदिषु तं निःस्पृहं वीक्ष्य हृष्यन् मुक्तेस्तुल्यं च भक्तिं तुदसकलमलं मोक्षमप्याशु दत्त्वा कार्यं हिंसा विशुद्ध्यै तपैति च तदा प्रातलोकप्रदीप्त्यै तदनु मधुरां गत्वा हत्वा च मुं यवनाहृदां मगपदपदिना मार्गे सैन्यः पुरेव निवारितः चरमविजयं दर्भास्यास्मै प्रदाय बलायितो जलति नगरीं यादो वादालयेश्वर पाहि माम् श्रीकृष्णाय परब्रह्मणे नमः.
Very good. I think this is a little bit of a tough chapter because the tunes also changes multiple times, and yeah.
Thank
So the one thing I'm always afraid is when I say and then one of you pick up, the Shruti is totally different, right? Like my voice and your voice, right? So if you instantly follow after I say, sometimes your
That's
women
Yeah.
pitch goes up, right? Or low. I don't know which it is, but it's different, right? Because the
It
bass
is
was
hard to catch up with your tone, Rajesh Karu.
Yeah, that's why I'm conscious about it, but it's hard anyway. Okay, so we'll go to 78. I think we'll finish 78 today, but 82 we'll see because there's a lot of background stories that will happen today. So, okay, so maybe Anu, you can be a student, and Jayshree, you can be a student. Okay, first off. Okay, 78. So 78 is Dwaraka Vasanam Varnanam. So which is like the stay of Lord in Dwaraka, and the second is Rukminya's Sandeshascha. So the message that Rukmini sends, because 79 was Rukmini Swayamvaram. So what is happening before that is coming up in 78. So stanza 1. त्रिदश वर्धकी वर्धित कौशलम त्रिदश दत्त समस्त विभूतिमते जलधि मध्य गतम त्वमभूषयो नवपुरं वपुरंचित रोचिषा. So we saw last time, right, how in the middle of the battle, right, when that Yavana was attacking from Greece in the middle, then Krishna moved everybody all the way from Mathura over to Dwaraka. So Dwaraka was established. And, we also saw how it was, like, I think it was 12 yojanas in diameter, it's a circumference, right? So about 96 miles circumference, the city was fortified and built. So here they are saying that now you move to that city, and Vishwakarma then helped establish and design and architected that city. So because it was done in that way, it had the kind of the best of the best, right? So it was, although it was built in the middle of the sea, it was well fortified because Krishna did not want this constant people coming and attacking into Mathura and all that, right? So it just talks about all the greatness of the city, and they talk about how they had these big towers and it was all studded with golds and emeralds. In fact, at night nobody even needed any light, because I think the moonlight was falling on all the emeralds and the gems, and that it was providing enough light to everybody. And of course, like when we do Graha Praise, people come and offer gifts. When Krishna opened up the city, so Indra and Varuna, all of them came, and then they all kind of gave their offerings. So it was kind of well established, and it was a massive city. Like they're comparing Atlantis, right? Similarly, Dwaraka also was a massive city which had all of the great things. So that's what they're kind of saying, that you now continue to remain in Dwaraka, which was very well established. So the first word in some books have Tridiva, right? But I think we're just going to change it to Tridasha. Okay, so just change it to Tridasha. Some books have Tridasha anyways. So Tridasha Vardaki Vardita Kaushalam, comma Tridasha Datta Samasta Vibhuti Mate Jaladi Madhyagatam Twama Bhushayo, comma Navapuram Vapuranchi Tarochisha. त्रिदश वर्धकी वर्धित कौशलम त्रिदश दत्त समस्त विभूतिमते जलधि मध्य गतम त्वमभूषयो नवपुरं वपुरंचित रोचिषा.
त्रिदश वर्धकी वर्धित कौशलम त्रिदश दत्त समस्त विभूतिमत जलधि मध्य गतम त्वमभूषयो नवपुरं वपुरंचित रोचिषा. त्रिदश वर्धकी वर्धित कौशलम त्रिदश दत्त समस्त विभूतिमत जलधि मध्य गतम त्वमभूषयो नवपुरं वपुरंचित रोचिषा.
त्रिदश वर्धकी वर्धित कौशलम त्रिदश दत्त समस्त विभूतिमत् जलधि मध्य गतं त्वमभूषयो नवपुरं वपुरंचित रोचिषा. त्रिदश वर्धकी वर्धित कौशलम त्रिदश दत्त समस्त विभूतिमत् जलधिमध्यगतं त्वमभूषयो नवपुरं वपुरञ्चितरोचिषा.
Stanza 2. ददुषिरेवत भूभृतिरेवतीं हलभृते तनयां विदिशासनात् महितमुत्सवघोषमपूपुषः समुदितैर्मुदितैः सह यादवैः. So there's an interesting story that happens here, which some of you might have heard in other contexts. So Balarama, we never talk about as much, right? We saw about all the wives that Krishna married. So here they're talking about how Balarama gets married. So several years back, right? And there was a king called Revaka. So he was very powerful and he had established a kingdom underwater, right? He was a very powerful king. So he had 100 children, and one boy's name was Kakudmi. And that now the slight difference between what is written in Narayaneeyam and what is there in Bhagavatam, but it's irrelevant. Anyways, so here in Bhagavatam it says that Kakudmi had a daughter called Revati. Here Bhattaripad is saying Revaka had a daughter named Revati. So it doesn't matter. Anyway, there was a daughter called Revati. And so this Kakudmi then says, that I have to get the best husband for my daughter, right? So because he was such a powerful, he was able to go all the way up to Brahmaloka, right? So he takes his daughter and he goes to Brahmaloka and he goes and says, Brahma, that I'm come to meet you. Brahma says, just give me a minute, right? And then Brahma then meets with him and then he says that I have this fantastic daughter, and he's a very famous person also. He says, I want my daughter to get the best husband. And he says, I have a list of prospects I have in mind. Or if you have someone else better to offer my daughter, I'm willing to take it. So then when he says that, Brahma laughs. Brahma says, do you realize that when you come to my world and you waited for the few minutes, he says 27 Chaturyugas have already passed. Okay. So he says all the people that you are talking about, there's no trace of anybody. There's no trace of any of their generations also right now. Right? And even all of your relatives, everybody that you're talking of is completely gone, wiped out. And there's absolutely no trace. So he says, even if you go back now, your kingdom itself doesn't exist anymore. Right? There's something else that has already come there, and so many 27 Chaturyugas have passed. So this person says, okay, what do I do? He says, okay, you're fortunate that right now, when you go back, at that time, a portion of Mahavishnu himself is present as Balarama. And he is the right match for your daughter, right? So he sends Kakudmi and Revati back, and then he goes and says, you go meet with Balarama, and then you marry Revati to Balarama. So that's what happens. So this Kakudmi comes back, and then Balarama, then this Dwapara Yuga is going on for this time, right? And then she gets married to Balarama, right? That is the story.
Did he come with the daughter to see?
Yeah, the daughter also came together. So that is the interesting thing in Hinduism, right? They talk about the concept of time so nicely, is that in this case, they did not age because they somehow had some mechanism by which they were able to go to the Brahmaloka. Okay. So when they somehow went super lightning speed, right? So they went, and when they went, they did not age because for them only little amount of time had passed in Brahmaloka. But in earth years, several 27 Chaturyugas had passed. So when they came back. So this is how one of the ways Hinduism talks about the concept of how, the time relativity, right? When you travel, right? So saying he did not change, but everybody here has changed, right? So kind of he was time traveling, right, to some extent. So when he comes back, and then Revati gets married to Balarama here. And then they all celebrate it in a big way. That's what he's saying, Ghosham Apupushaha, right? So the Yadavas celebrate it in a big manner. So Dadushi Revata Bhubriti Revatim, Halabhrite Tanayam Vidhi Shasanat Mahitam Utsava Ghosham Apupushaha, if you want to break it, Ghosham Apupushaha, Samuditair Muditaihi, is there put a is Muditais Saha Yadavaihi. Dadushirevata Bhubhritirevatim Halabhrite Tanayam Vidishasanat Mahitamutsava Ghoshamapu Samuditair Muditais Saha Yadavaihi.
Dadushirevata bhubhritirevatim halabrite tanayam vidishasanat mahitamutsava ghoshamapupushah samuditai muditai sahayadavaihi. ददुषीरेवतिर्भूभृतिरेवतीं हलभृते तनयां विधिशासनात् महितमुत्सवघोषमपूपुषः समुदितैर्मुदितैर्सह यादवैः
ददुषिरेवत भूभृतिरेवतीं हलभृते तनयां विधिशासनात् महितमुत्सवघोषमपूपुषः समुदितैर्मुदितैः सह यादवैः ददुषिरेवत भूभृतिरेवतीं हलभृते तनयां विधिशासनात् महितमुत्सवघोषमपूपुषः समुदितैर्मुदितैः सह यादवैः.
Stanza 3. अत विदर्भसुतां खलु रुक्मिणीं प्रणयिनीं त्वयि देव सहोदरः स्वयमदित्सत चेदि महीभुजे स्वतमसा तमसाधुमुपाश्रयन्. So Balarama, that's only one stanza related to that Revati marriage. That's over now. Now another new story is starting from here. So in this the region called Vidarbha, which I think is the Nagpur, current Maharashtra Nagpur region, right? So there was a king called Bhishmaka. So this Bhishmaka had 5 sons and he had 1 daughter. So the famous daughter was Rukmini and one of the sons' name was Rukmi, who was Rukmini's brother. So this Rukmi, this whole Rukmi, Kamsa, Jarasandha, Shishupala, they're all like one gang, right? So because they're all like kind of all friends with each other, right? And so when Kamsa got killed, so like we saw how Jarasandha last time we saw he came at 27 times or something, he at 18 times or something he attacked, right? So they all have been constantly trying to fight with Krishna. So Rukmi also hates Krishna and he also wants to get rid of Krishna. But however, this Bhishmaka king was a very religious person, and so a lot of people used to visit him. And when people used to visit him, they used to bring this news, right? So they used to come and talk about this great person who lives in Dwaraka, Dwarakapati, and all the great things that Krishna has done. So Rukmini grew up, or she's constantly listening to this. So purely by listening, and she has not seen Krishna, Krishna has not seen Rukmini, but purely by listening to all the great things that Krishna has done, Rukmini fell in love with Krishna. And Rukmini Hamsa herself is like Mahalakshmi's incarnation. So anyway, so she fell in love and she went and told her father that if I have to marry, I'm going to marry Krishna. So Bhishmaka said, I am fine with it. But Rukmi, her brother, was completely opposed because he does not want Krishna to be part of the family. So he wanted her to marry Shishupala, who is Krishna's cousin, right? And says she has to marry Krishna's cousin Shishupala. So he was completely against that. So that is what is happening so far. So atha vidarbha sutam khalu rukminim im, pranayinim tvayi deva sahodaraha swayam aditsata chedi mahibhuje, swa tamasa Tamasadum Upashrayan, if you want to break it. Tamasadum Upashrayan. The Chedi here is because Shishupala is the king of Chedi. That's one name of a land. Atavidarbhasutam khalu rukminim pranahinim tvahi deva sahodaraha swayamadet sata chedi mahi bujhe swatamasa tamasadum upashrayan.
अथ विदर्भसुतां खलु रुक्मिणीं प्रणयिनीं त्वयि देव सहोदरः स्वयमदित्सत चेदिमहि भुजे स्वतमसा तमसाधुमुपाश्रयन् अथ विदर्भसुतां खलु रुक्मिणीं प्रणयिनीं त्वयि देव सहोदरः स्वयमदित्सत चेदिमहि भुजे तमसाधुमुपाश्रयन्
अथ विदर्भसुतां खलु रुक्मिणीं प्रणयिनीं त्वयि देव सहोदरः स्वयमदित्सत चेदिमहि भुजे स्वतमसा तमसाधुमुपाश्रयन् अथ विदर्भसुतां खलु रुक्मिणीं प्रणयिनीं त्वयि देव सहोदरः स्वयमदित्सत चेदिमहि भुजे स्वतमसा तमसाधुमुपाश्रयन्.
Stanza 4. चिरधृतप्रणया त्वयि बालिका सपदि काङ्क्षितभङ्गसमाकुला तव निवेदयितुं द्विजमादिशत् स्वकदनं कदनङ्गविनिर्मितम्. Of course, Sri Krishna, of course, knows, right? So he knew that Rukmini is interested and all of that stuff. But in this avataram, most of the time, Krishna waits for things to happen, takes it time, because otherwise, then there is no fun, right? So he doesn't do anything. He's just sitting and waiting. But he knows about Rukmini. He knows Rukmini is interested in him and all that. So, like, in college, when you have to go and propose to somebody or you have to send a letter, people generally don't go direct, right? They send it through somebody. They have to send a messenger, and that sometimes backfires, right? But in this case, Rukmini, she found a Brahmin. She said, this is a very trustworthy person, because her wedding is getting done and she's absolutely not interested, right? And her wedding preparations are going on, so she says, I cannot leave because that will be very suspicious. So what she does is she writes a very nice letter, and the letter we'll read in the later on, right? And she passes it through a Brahmin and says to the Brahmin, this is extremely urgent. You have to go right now to Dwaraka and meet Dwarakadish and hand over this letter to Dwarakadish and read it out. Make sure he reads it or you read it out to him, so that I want to make sure that Krishna gets the letter and he's aware of the contents of it. So she's sending that letter with the Dvija. Dvija means a Brahmin, one who is twice born. So Chira Dhrita Pranaya Tvai Balika, comma, Sapadi Kankshita Bhanga Samakula Tava Nivedayitum Dvijam Adishat, comma, Swa Kadanam Kadananga Vinirmitam. Chiradhrita Pranaya Tvai Balika Sapadi Kankshita Bhanga Samakula Tava Nivedayitum Dvijamadishate Swakadanam Kadananga Vinirmitam.
चिरधृत प्रणया त्वयि बालिका सपदि काङ्क्षित भङ्ग समाकुला तव निवेदयितुं द्विजमादिशत् स्वकदनं कदनङ्ग विनिर्मितम्. चिरधृत प्रणया त्वयि बालिका सपदि काङ्क्षित भङ्ग समाकुला तव निवेदयितुं द्विजमादिशत् स्वकदनं कदनङ्ग विनिर्मितम्.
चिरधृतप्रणया त्वयि बालिका सपदि काङ्क्षितभङ्गसमाकुला तव निवेदयितुं द्विजमादिशत् स्वकदनं कदनङ्गविनिर्मितम्. चिरधृतप्रणया त्वयि बालिका सपदि काङ्क्षितभङ्गसमाकुला तव निवेदयितुं द्विजमादिशत् स्वकदनं कदनङ्गविनिर्मितम्.
5 and 6, I'll say the meaning together. Dvija Sutopi Cha Turnam Upayayav, if you want to break it that ma, Turnam Upayayav, comma, Tava Puramhi Durasha Durasadam Mudamavapa Cha Sadara Pujitaha, comma, Sa Bhavata Bhava Tapa Hrita Swayam. द्विजसुतोऽपि चतुर्णमुपाययौ तव पुरं हि दुराश दुरासदं मुदमवाप च सादरपूजितः स भवता भवतापहृता स्वयम्.
द्विजसुतोऽपि चतुर्णमुपाययौ तव पुरं हि दुराश दुरासदं मुदमवाप च सादरपूजितः स भवता भवतापहृता स्वयं. द्विजसुतोऽपि चतुर्णमुपाययौ तव पुरं हि दुराश दुरासदं मुदमवाप च सादरपूजितः स भवता भवतापहृता स्वयं.
द्विजसुतोऽपि चतुर्णमुपाययौ तव पुरं हि दुराश दुरासदम् मुदमवाप च सादरपूजितः स भवता भवतापहृता स्वयं. द्विजसुतोऽपि चतुर्णमुपाययौ तव पुरं हि दुराश दुरासदम् मुदमवाप च सादरपूजितः स भवता भवतापहृता स्वयम्.
Stanza 6. स च भवन्तमवोचत कुण्ठिने नृपसुता खलु राजति रुक्मिणी त्वयि समुत्सुकया निजधीरता रहितया हितया प्रहितोऽस्म्यहम्. So this Brahmin person, now it's not quite sure how old this is, because Bhattacharya is referring to him as a Brahmin boy. That's how he's referring him. But in some places he's referred to as a elderly person. But anyway, he was one Dvija who came. So this Dvija now finally comes over to Dwaraka, and somehow he manages to get it right. So it's not because Dwaraka is in the middle of the sea. It's very difficult to access, right? Of course, they had a bridge which was constructed over the ocean, but somehow this Dvija was able to go, right? And he was able to reach. And once he goes to and he gets a chance to meet with Krishna. And then he tells Krishna, and Krishna is aware that this person has come. And this the Dvija goes and tells that I have a message from the princess of Vidarbha, right, Rukmini, and she has sent a very important message for you. And he, first is like, they first immediately communicate the main point. She says she is in love with you, she wants to marry you, she has sent a message with me, right? So he first tells that, and then next few stanzas he's going to read out the message, but he conveys that message. And Krishna also, he's also aware, like we said, Krishna also knows who Rukmini is, so he's also saying okay, and he asks for what is she telling. So sacha bhavantam avochata, if you want to break it, bhavantam avochata kundine, comma, nripa sutha khalu rajati rukmini त्वयि samutsukaya nija dhirata, and then put a plus, rahitaya, dhirata rahitaya hi taya prahitosmyaham. So that word you can say it together, prahitosmyaham. स च भवन्तमवोचत कुण्डिने नृपसुता खलु राजति रुक्मिणी त्वयि समुत्सुकया निजधीरता रहितया हितया प्रहितोऽस्म्यहम्.
स च भवन्तमवोचत कुण्डिने नृपसुता खलु राजति रुक्मिणी त्वयि समुत्सुकया निजधीरता रहितया हितया प्रहितोऽस्म्यहम्. स च भवन्तमवोचत कुण्डिने नृपसुता खलु राजति रुक्मिणी त्वयि समुत्सुकया निजधीरता रहितया हितया प्रहितोऽस्म्यहम्.
स च भवन्तमवोचत कुण्डिने नृपसुता खलु राजति रुक्मिणी त्वयि समुत्सुकया निजधीरता रहितया हितया प्रहितोऽस्म्यहम्. स च भवन्तमवोचत कुण्डिने नृपसुता खलु राजति रुक्मिणी त्वयि समुत्सुकया निजधीरता रहितया हितया प्रहितोऽस्म्यहम्.
We'll do 7 and 8 meaning together. Tava hritasmi puraiva gunairaham, comma, harati mam kila chedi nripodhuna ai kripalaya palaya mamiti, comma, prajagade jagadeka pate taya. तव हृतास्मि पुरैव गुणैरहं हरति मां किल चेदि नृपोऽधुना अयि कृपालय पालय मामिति प्रजगदे जगदेकपते तया.
तव हृतास्मि पुरैव गुणैरहं हरति मां किल चेदि नृपोऽधुना अयि कृपालय पालय मामिति प्रजगदे जगदेकपते तया. तव हृतास्मि पुरैव गुणैरहं हरति मां किल चेदि नृपोऽधुना अयि कृपालय पालय मामिति प्रजगदे जगदेकपते तया.
तव कृतास्मि पुरैव गुणैरहं हरति मां किल चेदि नृपोऽधुना अयि कृपालय पालय मामिति प्रजगदे जगदेकपते तया. तव कृतास्मि पुरैव गुणैरहं हरति मां किल चेदि नृपोऽधुना अयि कृपालय पालय मामिति प्रजगदे जगदेकपते तया.
Stanza 8. अशरणं यदि मां त्वमुपेक्षसे सपदि जीवितमेव जहाम्यहम् इति गिरा सुतनोरतनोद्भृशं सुहृदयं हृदयं तव कातरम्. So now so Krishna, when this Dvija is there, so Krishna tells, okay, what is the message that Rukmini has sent? So this Dvija is reading out Rukmini's letter, right? And in her letter, so it's like she's put a very clear. So Rukmini is extremely intelligent, right? For the times, right? And she's very knowledgeable also. So she's written a very nice letter with, when you're writing a letter, you have to first talk about what you want. You should first tell upfront what you want, and then you should say what are the benefits if you do this, and what are the implications if you don't do this, right? So you have to convey all of those things. So she says very clearly that I have heard about all of your qualities. I've heard about your greatness. I've heard about your beauty from all the people who visit my father's kingdom. Because of which, as she says, I'm shamelessly, she says, I've lost my mind to you, right? You are the person who I love the most. So that is very clear. And he says, and then she compares and says why Krishna is the best. He says, for a person like me, who is a princess from a very rich kingdom, for a person who is well studied, who is good qualities and everything, when I look for who is the best person I have to marry, there's nobody else comparable to you. Right, the same thing Lakshmi also said during her Swayamvaram, right? When she was walking with the garland, she was walking around and saying, who is the person who I can marry, who relatively is the best, who doesn't have any deficiencies? Similarly, Rukmini is saying, of everybody I know, you are the best person. So I absolutely am very interested in marrying you. She makes it very clear. Then she says, however, she says, my brother Rukmi has decided me to get me married to this Shishupala, who I don't want to get married. Right? So he says, please, very urgently, she says, my marriage is tomorrow. So this Brahmana is coming in the morning or something. Her marriage is the next day. So she says, my marriage is tomorrow. I somehow want you to come with an army, abduct me, and if anybody is obstructing, then use your army to destroy, fight with them, and take me very swiftly. And she says, by tomorrow, this has to happen tomorrow. So she's made that also very clear. This has to happen tomorrow. And now, Krishna doesn't know anything about Vidarbha. He doesn't know where she's going to be. So she's also hinting that. She's saying that it's not going to be easy for you to come and just abduct me like that. She says, in our tradition, every day on the day of the marriage, we go visit this Parvati temple, right? And that is a time where I come out of the chambers and I'm going to be out in the open, right? So she says, tomorrow morning, when I'm out visiting the Parvati temple and I'm coming out, I want you to be there, and that is the best time to abduct me and come with me. And she says, if you don't do it, then I'm going to kill myself, right? That is the implication of you not coming. Whereas I'm going to give up my life, because that's how important it is that you absolutely come. So she sends this very clearly in a letter to Krishna, and like we saw in the 79th Dasakam, right? She then has no idea, right? The Brahmana comes the next day, and then he says, Krishna is here. That's all he tells. And Rukmini hasn't seen Krishna. She doesn't know whether Krishna is going to follow the plan or anything. And that's when, if you remember that stanza where she's coming out of the temple and she's looking around, right? And then she sees Krishna at a distance. And then suddenly somebody comes and grabs her hand and says, jump into the chariot. And she just blindly jumps into the chariot at that time, right? So anyway, so this is the nice letter that Rukmini is sending, which this Brahmana is reading to Krishna. And when Krishna heard that, then he also, his heart felt heavy, right? He felt like he had to take action immediately right now. So asharanam yedi mam tvam upekshase, sapadi jeevitameva jahamyaham iti gira sutanor athanod. If you want to break it, sutanor athanod brisham, suhridayam hridayam tava kataram. अशरणं यदि मां त्वमुपेक्षसे सपदि जीवितमेव जहाम्यहम् इति गिरा सुतनोरतनोद्भृशं सुहृदयं हृदयं तव कातरम्.
शरणां यदि मां त्वमुपेक्षसे सपदि जीवितमेव जहाम्यहम् इति गिरा सुतनोरतनोद्भृशं सुहृदयं हृदयं तव कातरम्. अशरणां यदि मां त्वमुपेक्षसे सपदि जीवितमेव जहाम्यहम् इति गिरा सुतनोरतनोद्भृशं सुहृदयं हृदयं तव कातरम्.
अशरणं यदि मां त्वमुपेक्षसे सपदि जीवितमेव जहाम्यहम् इति गिरासुतनोरतनोदृशं सुहृदयं हृदयं तव कातरम् अशरणां यदि मां त्वमुपेक्षसे सपदि जीवितमेव जहाम्यहम् इति गिरासुतनोरतनोदृशं सुहृदयं हृदयं तव कातरम्.
9 and 10 meaning together. Akathayas tvam athainamaye, if you want to break it, or you can say it together, tvam athainamaye sakhe, comma, thadadhika mama manmata vedana nripa samaksham upetya haramyaham, comma, tadayi tam dayitam asitekshanam. अकथयस्त्वमथैनमहे सखे तदधिका मम मन्मथवेदना नृपसमक्षमुपेत्य हराम्यहं तदहितां दहितामसि ते क्षणाम्.
अकथयस्त्वमथैनमये सखे तदधिका मम मन्मथवेदना नृपसमक्षमुपेत्य हराम्यहम् तदयितां दयितामसि ते क्षणाम्. अकथयस्त्वमथैनमये सखे तदधिका मम मन्मथवेदना नृपसमक्षमुपेत्य हराम्यहम् तदयितां दयितामसि ते क्षणाम्.
अकथयस्तवम first word சொல்லுங்க திருப்பி.
अकथयस् त्वम अथैन
अकथयस्त्वमथैनमये सखे तदधिका मम मन्मथवेदना नृपसमक्षमुपेत्य हराम्यहम् तदयितां दयितामसि ते क्षणाम्. अकथयस्त्वमथैनमये सखे तदधिका मम मन्मथवेदना नृपसमक्षमुपेत्य हराम्यहम् तदयितां दयितामसि ते क्षणाम्.
संसटन प्रमुदितेन च तेन समं तथा रतगतो लघुकुण्डिनमेवान् गुरुमरुत्पुरनायक मे भवान् वितनुतां तनुतां निखिलापदाम्. So when the Brahmana tells this, reads out the letter, Krishna says that, listen, I absolutely understand the situation that Rukmini is in, and says, I also am deeply in love with her, and I also want to go and get married to her. So because that muhurtam is happening tomorrow morning, so Krishna instantly tells the chariot guy, okay, let's go, right? So Krishna and this Brahmin and the charioteer, they get ready, and then they swiftly leave for this Vidarbha the same day. So the previous day of the marriage, and they go very fast, and they reach the same day, because Nagpur is not too far away from Dwaraka anyways, right? So they kind of reach the same day, and that's when all of the other things happen. So that's how this chapter ends. And anyway, 79 is the Rukmini Swayamvaram anyways. So pramuditena cha tena samam tada, comma, ratha gato laghu kundinam eivan together, guru marut pura नायक में भवान, कॉमा, विथनुताम तनुताम निखिलापदाम. प्रमुदितेन च तेन समं तथा रतगतो लघुकुण्डिनमेवान् गुरुमरुत्पुरनायक मे भवान् वितनुतां तनुतां निखिलापदाम्.
प्रमुदितेन च तेन समं तदा रथगतो लघुकुण्डिनमेयिवान् गुरुमरुत्पुरनायक मे भवान् वितनुतां तनुतां निखिलापदाम्. प्रमुदितेन च तेन समं तदा रथगतो लघुकुण्डिनमेयिवान् गुरुमरुत्पुरनायक मे भवान् वितनुतां तनुतां निखिलापदाम्.
प्रमुदितेन च तेन समं तथा रथगतो लघुकुण्डिनमेयिवान् गुरुमरुत्पुरनायक मे भवान् वितनुतां तनुतां निखिलापदाम्.
Jayashree, the first line samam tada, da, first da.
ஓ ததான்னு போட்டிருக்கேன் எனக்கு.
Tada, change it to da.
Okay. प्रमुदितेन च तेन समं तदा रथगतो लघुकुण्डिनमेयिवान् गुरुमरुत्पुरनायक मे भवान् वितनुतां तनुतां निखिलापदाम्. Sri Krishnaय Parabrahmane.
Namaha. Okay, so it completes it's a small chapter. That's 78 is done. Okay, let's switch. We'll jump to the next one. Anandji, you can be a student, and then Revati, you can be a student. Okay.
Oh, thank you.
So 82 is it's a what do you call a lot of stories come in that. So we'll probably end up going a little slow in that chapter. So it's got two main one main story and one side story. One is Bana Yuddham, which is fight with a person called Bhana, and the second is Nriga Moksham, which is liberation of a king called Nriga. That only comes in the 10th stanza, but a lot of other things. The main thing is the fight with Bana that happens here. Okay, so stanza 1. प्रद्युम्नो रौक्मिणेयः स खलु तव कला शम्बरेणाहृतस्तं हत्वा रत्या सहाप्तो निजपुरमहरत् रुक्मिकन्यां च धन्यां तत्पुत्रो तानिरुद्धो गुणनिधिरवहत् रोचनां रुक्मिपौत्रीं तत्रोद्वाहे गतस्त्वं न्यवधिमुसलिना रुक्म्यपि द्यूतवैरात्. So here there are a lot of incidents which are happening here, but Bhattacharya is just saying it just in one line and moving on, right? But we'll spend some time so you get some context, right? So we saw Rukmi we saw in the 78th and 79th and everything, right? So Krishna marries Rukmini. So to Krishna and Rukmini, a son is actually born called as Pradyumna. That is the name of the son who's born. So there's another backstory which you all are aware of is when Kamadeva went and disrupted Shiva's meditation because he wanted Shiva to marry Parvati or Sati at that time. So the Shiva opened his eyes and Kamadeva got burnt, right? So you all know that story. So at that time, when Kamadeva's wife Rati goes to Shiva and says that, you got rid of my husband, right? And then she goes and prays to him. So Shiva says, don't worry, he's going to be eventually born, right? And he's going to be born later on. And when he's born, you will get a chance to go and marry him, right? So the story is that this Kamadeva is actually born as Pradyumna to the son, as a son of Rukmini and Krishna. So that is one part of it. So now this Pradyumna, when he was actually born, in the 6th week itself, Asura called Shambhara, that's why it says Shambare na Hritastam, it comes in the first line, right? The Shambhara, Asura, he kidnaps Pradyumna, and what he does is he throws him into the ocean somewhere. In the middle of the ocean, he goes, drops a 6-week-old baby. Now what happens is, and don't ask me some of this, how this happens, a fish ends up swallowing Pradyumna. And this fish gets caught by a fisherman who takes the fish to Sambara's palace to cook. And there he gives that fish to the cook. The fisherman gives the fish to the cook. This cook cuts open the fish. And when the cook cuts open the fish, the baby comes out of the fish. Now the cook is a lady called Mayavati, who is actually Rati being reborn. So Rati then is reborn as Mayavati, and she now gets this baby in her hand. So she doesn't know anything, right? So she then decides, how is a baby here, right? And then she decides to bring that baby up. And like we said, always is when people don't know what is happening, there's only one person in the whole world who knows what happens. So Narada comes and tells Rati that your husband Kamadeva is now born as this person. So he says, you have to bring him up and then eventually you have to marry him also, right? So, it doesn't matter age difference and all, but he's your husband who has been reborn, and that is the only way you both are going to get reunited, right? So, this Mayavati or Rati brings this Pradyumna up, and when he comes to a reasonable age, she then goes and tells everything to him, saying that you are actually Kamadeva being reborn. You and I are destined to get married, right? She kind of tells all of that stuff, right? And then what happens is, and then there's a battle, and then she also tells Pradyumna how to win against Sambara in a battle. So it does that, and Pradyumna defeats Sambara. So that is also done. So now all of these people come back to Dwaraka. When they come to Dwaraka, and so this Rati, they are entering. So when Rukmini and others are seeing Pradyumna, they think like Krishna himself has come. That's what everybody thinks, because this Pradyumna looks exactly like Krishna, right? So everybody's like, how is Krishna coming with somebody else right now, right? And then they see Krishna also, and then everybody's getting confused again. Then Krishna knows everything, but Narada comes, because if you explain saying, how is somebody looking like me, then nobody will believe, right? It's better that some third party person comes and explains. So Narada comes and says, this is your son Pradyumna, who you had lost when he was 6 weeks old. And then he goes and recites the whole story about how Mayavati or Rati has married with Pradyumna and all of that stuff. So all of that is happening, and then now Pradyumna and Mayavati or Rati are getting married as well. The other thing that happens is, now to this Pradyumna is born a child. So we are now kind of, so this Pradyumna actually marries, Pradyumna marries Rukmi and Rukmini are same level. Pradyumna is one level lower. So similarly, Rukmi through his other children gets another daughter who this Pradyumna marries. So it's kind of like this mama attai relationship, right? So that is another person who Pradyumna marries, and to them is born a boy called Aniruddha. So that is the other person who is also born. So all of this lineage of Krishna is actually coming there, and so this Aniruddha is also born. Aniruddha marries Rukmini. Anyway, so I think these 3 generations are there. Krishna is there, Pradyumna is there. Pradyumna marries this Mayavati, who is Rati incarnated, and to them is born this person called as Aniruddha. And then there is a battle which happens where Balarama gets rid of Rukmi eventually. So all of that is some other more backstories. So anyway, so all of that is condensed in one. Yeah.
So when Pradyumna was abducted, how come they didn't go search for him?
They could not see. There's a reason, right? Krishna knows everything that is happening. Right. So the reason this was eventually the whole idea was Pradyumna had to get married to Rati or Mayavati, right? So the only way that all of this is kind of, think of it as staged, right, to some extent at a very high level, right? So Krishna knows everything that is happening. So they might have gone and searched, and Krishna would have said, I'm not able to find him. It is just like when the Brahmana lost that 9th child, Krishna did not go. When Devaki lost 6 children, Krishna did not go recover, because all of that is happening for a reason. So of course everybody is like worried about what is happening to Pradyumna. Krishna would have said, I went and searched, I'm not able to find what happened, right? But he knows eventually that the whole reason this is happening is that that's the way he can reach Mayavati or Rati, and then they can get married, and eventually they'll come back. So anyway, so all of those stories are happening there, and so now for them another boy called Aniruddha is born. So now the rest of the story is going to be a continuation of Aniruddha's, what is happening to him. So he's the grandson of Krishna, right? Born to Pradyumna. So Pradyumno Raukmineyaha, sa khalu tava kala shambare nahritas tam, hatva ratya sahapto nija puram aharad Rukmi Kanyam Cha Dhanyam. So second line, there is no pause. Pradyumno Raukmineyaha Sakhalu Tavakala Shambarena Hritastam Hatva Ratya Sahapto Nijapura Maharat Rukmi Kanyam Cha Dhanyam.
Pratyumno Rakmineya Saghalatavakala Chambarena Hritastam Hatva Ratya Sahapto Nijapura Maharat Rukmi Kanyam Cha Dhanyam.
Anji, the first line, Raukmineyaha, there is a visarga there, okay?
Pratyumno Rakmineyaha Sagalutavakala Shambharena Hritastam Hatva Ratya Sahapto Nijapura Maharat Rukmi Kanyam Cha Dhanyam.
Okay. Pradyumno Rakmineyaha Sakalu Tavakala Samparena Hritastam Hatva Ratya Sahapto Nijapura Maharat Rukmi Kanyam Satanyam. Pradyumno Rakmineyaha Sakalu Tavakala Samparena Hritastam Hatva Ratya Sahapto Nijapura Maharat Rukmi Kanyam Satanyam.
Tat Putro Thaniruddho. So this one, Tat Putro Atha Aniruddho, in multiple words joining, but you kind of say the whole thing together. Tat Putro Thaniruddho, Guna Nidir Avahad Rochanam Rukmi Pautri. So Rukmi's granddaughter, Pautri called Rochana, gets married to this is Pradyumna, right? And that's how Aniruddha is born. So Guna Nidir Avahat Rochanam Rukmi Pautrim, comma Tatrodvahe Gatastvam Nyavadi Musalina, comma Rukmyapi. So ik and mya. So Rukmyapi Dhyuta Vairat. Tatputro Taniruddho Gunanidhiravahad Rochanam Rukmi Pautrim Tatrodvahe Gatastvam Nyavadi Musalina Rukmyapi Dhyuta Vairat.
तत्पुत्रो धानिरुद्धो गुणनिधिरवहत् रोचनां रुक्मि पौत्रीं तत्रोद्वाहे गतस्त्वं न्यवतिमुसलिना रुक्म्यपि द्यूतवैरात् तत्पुत्रो धानिरुद्धो गुणनिधिरवहत् रोचनां रुक्मि पौत्रीं तत्रोद्वाहे गतस्त्वं न्यवतिमुसलिना रुक्म्यपि द्यूतवैरात्
तत्पुत्रो दानिरुद्धो गुणनिधिरवहत् रोचनां रुक्मि पौत्रीं तत्रोद्वाहे गतस्त्वं न्यवति मुसलिना रुक्म्यभीद्युतवैरात् तत्पुत्रो दानिरुद्धो गुणनिधिरवहत् रोचनां रुक्मि पौत्रीं तत्रोद्वाहे गतस्त्वं न्यवति मुसलिना रुक्म्यभीद्युतवैरात्.
And even in the third line, Taniruddho Kapran, there's a comma, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Answer 2. This one, the tune changes. Banasya Sabali-sutasya Sahasrabhahoho Maheshwarasya Mahita Duhita Kilosha Tatpautramena Maniruddhamadrishta Purvam Swapni Nubhuya Bhagavan Virahaturabhut. So this completely new story is starting here, which is kind of connected. But so Prahlada's grandson was Mahabali, and this Mahabali was who came during the Vamana Avataram, right? So at the time when Prahlada's Narsimha Avataram happened itself, Lord had said, I will not do anything to your whole generation, right? Your ancestry, right? I will not hurt. So that's why even Mahabali, Lord did not get rid of him completely, right? He just sent him to Sutala Lokam, but he blessed him. So this Mahabali has 100 children, multiple children, and one of them person is called Bana. That's the name of his name. That's his name. And this Bana, he is a huge devotee of Lord Shiva, right? So he does lot of tapas and he does everything to Shiva. And Shiva being Ashutoshi, he instantly grants, right? He gives him a lot of benefits. One of them is he has Sahasra Bahoho. He has 1,000 arms, right? So he could actually, so this Bana is somewhere, he's not even in this earthly plane. He's somewhere, right? So his Bana is like, he's got 1,000 arms. And one day when Shiva was dancing with Thandava Nityam, this Bana played the music for Shiva. So Shiva got even more impressed. So Shiva said, what boon do you want? So he says, my kingdom called Shonitapura, I want you to be the kind of the guardian of my city. He tells Shiva, you be the guardian of my city, so nobody can attack my city. So Shiva says, okay, I'll do that. And Shiva then becomes the guardian of Bana city or kingdom. Now, this Bana has a daughter. Her name is Usha. So this Usha one day sees Parvati spending time with Shiva, and then she goes and tells Parvati, I'm seeing you spending time with your husband, and she becomes of age. This Usha is of age, and she says, I also feel like I need to get married to somebody and all that. So Parvati says, don't worry, on the 12th day of the lunar calendar, a person is going to come in your dreams, and that is a person you're going to get married to, right? So this Usha then on the 12th day, Usha is now dreaming of a person, and that image has gotten stuck in her head, and somehow she falls in love with that person that she saw in her dreams. She doesn't know who it is, but she's absolutely in love with that person right now. So Banasya sa Bali Sutasya Sahasra Bahoho. So put a visarga at the end, comma. Next line on top of Ma, there is a ir, you can remove that. Maheshwarasya Mahita Duhita Kilosha. So next word, I'm going to break it into multiple parts if you want to use it. Twat Pautram Enam Aniruddham Adrishta Purvam. So here Bhattacharya is already revealed, saying that she saw Aniruddha, but she doesn't know. Okay, but anyway, that we'll find out how she finds it out. But anyway, so Tvat Pautram Enam Aniruddham Adrishta Purvam, comma swapnenu bhuya bhagavan virahaturabhut. So Tvat Pautram is your grandson. So we saw how Krishna, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. So that Aniruddha is actually who came in the dream. बाणस्य साबलिसुतस्य सहस्रबाहोः माहेश्वरस्य महिता दुहिता किलोषा त्वत्पौत्रमेनमनिरुद्धमदृष्टपूर्वं स्वप्नेऽनुभूय भगवन् विरहातुराभूत्.
बाणस्य साबलिसुतस्य सहस्रबाहोः माहेश्वरस्य महिता दुहिता किलोषा त्वत्पौत्रमेनमनिरुद्धमदृष्टपूर्वं स्वप्नेऽनुभूय भगवन् विरहादुराभूत्. बाणस्य साबलिसुतस्य सहस्रबाहोः माहेश्वरस्य महिता दुहिता किलोषा त्वत्पौत्रमेनमनिरुद्धमदृष्टपूर्वं स्वप्नेऽनुभूय भगवन् विरहादुराभूत्.
बाणस्य सपलिसुतस्य सहस्रबाहोः माहेश्वरस्य महिता दुहिता किलोषा त्वत्पौत्रमेन मनिरुद्धमदृष्टपूर्वं स्वप्नेऽनुभूय भगवन् विरहातुराभूत्. बाणस्य सपलिसुतस्य
बाणस्य
बाणस्य सा बलिसुतस्य सहस्रबाहोः माहेश्वरस्य महिता दुहिता किलोषा त्वत्पौत्रमेनमनिरुद्धमदृष्टपूर्वं स्वप्नेऽनुभूय भगवन् विरहादुराभूत्.
Answer 3. योगिन्यतीव कुशला खलु चित्रलेखा तस्या सखी विलिखति तरुणानशेषान् तत्रानिरुद्धमुषया विदितं निशायाम् आनेष्टयोगबलतो भवतो निकेतात्. So suddenly when she wakes up from her dream the next day, right, and then she's like she starts behaving different, Usha, right, because now she's in love. So she's in love with this person, she doesn't know who it is. So everybody has a friend who's always willing to help. So she goes to a friend of hers called Chitralekha. So her name is Chitralekha because she's an expert in drawing. So you kind of tell she sketches very well, right? So this Usha goes and tells, so this Chitralekha says, okay, tell me, how does this person look like? So she says, oh, this person is a little dark in color, he had very beautiful eyes, he was wearing, yellow pitambaram, yellow garments, and he had long arms, just like Krishna and Pradyumna's description, right? Same lineage. So she describes all that. So this person, Chitralekha, starts thinking about, when she knows about the story, so she goes and draws first all the Gandharvas, the demigods, all of them she draws, right? And this Usha says, no, it's none of these people. And then she starts drawing humans. And humans, she says, who are all the most prominent humans, right? And then when she starts drawing, and then finally when she comes to Pradyumna and Krishna, then Usha says, yeah, it's kind of resembling, right? And then she goes further and she draws Aniruddha and she says, yeah, this is the person. So Usha confirms that this is the person who came in my dreams, right? Now this Chitralekha is Yogin Yativa. She's a very powerful yogi. So what she's able to do is through the sky, she goes to Dwaraka, and Aniruddha, who's sleeping, she abducts him overnight and brings him to this Shonitapura, right? So Aniruddha is sleeping and Aniruddha wakes up and suddenly he is in the quarters of Usha, right? So she decides, I'm going to help my friend, and the best way is to abduct this person who my friend is in love with. So she brings Aniruddha over to Usha, to her residence right now. So Yogin Yativa Kushala Khalu Chitralekha, comma, Tasyaha, put is Tasya Sakhi Vilikhati Tarunan Asheshan or Tarunan Asheshan Tatrani Ruddham. So Tatra Aniruddham Ushaya Viditam. So the Nishaya is there, you put a plus at the end of that line, and then put a im at the end of that line. Nishayam. Nisha means night. So Nishayam plus Aneshta. Next word becomes Aneshta Yoga Balato Bhavato Niketat. Yogin Yativa Kushala Khalu Chitralekha Tasya Sakhi Vilikhati Taruna Nasheshan तत्र निरुद्धमुषया विदितं निशायाम् आनेष्टयोगबलतो भवतो निकेतात्
योगीन्यतीव कुशला खलु चित्रलेखा तस्या सखी विलिखति तरुणानशेषान् तत्र अनिरुद्धमुषया विदितं निशायामानिष्टयोगबलदो भवतो निकेतात् योगीन्यतीव कुशला खलु चित्रलेखा तस्या सखी विलिखति तरुणानशेषान् तत्र अनिरुद्धमुषया विदितं निशायामानिष्टयोगबलदो भवतो निकेतात्
योगीन् यतीव कुशला खलु चित्रलेखा तस्या सखी विलिखति तरुणानशेषान् तत्र निरुद्धमुषया विदितं निशायामानेष्टयोगबलतो भवतो निकेतात् योगीन् यतीव कुशला खलु चित्रलेखा तस्या सखी विलिखति तरुणानशेषान् तत्र निरुद्धमुषया विदितं निशायाम् आनेष्टयोगबलतो भवतो निकेतात्.
and so forth. कन्यापुरे दयितया सुखमारमन्तं चैनं कथञ्चन बन्धुषि शर्वबन्धौ श्रीनारदोक्त तदुदन्तधुरन्तरोषैः त्वं तस्य शोणितपुरं यदुभिर्न्यरुन्धाः. So this Aniruddha now comes over to Usha's quarters, and then he remains there for several days and he forgets. So he is also in love with Usha now, and both of them are happily enjoying. And time passes, right? Multiple days go, and he's still there. And the servants who are in the women's quarters, they start noticing this Usha is behaving very weird sometimes, right? Now she's in love, right? So she's behaving very different, and she says something is wrong. And they immediately go and let people know, and the soldiers go let Bana know that something is wrong with your daughter, she's behaving different. So this Bana himself comes, and then he comes and he catches both of them red-handed. They were playing dice or something they were playing, and they catches Aniruddha. And then this Bana, like we said, is a very powerful person, right? So he then catches Aniruddha. Aniruddha tries to fight, but nothing happens. He's held captive. So Aniruddha is stuck now with Bana. So like as always, Narada is going, and then he goes tells the Yadavas that the grandson who you all are still searching for is sitting with Bana, right? So you all have to go. So all the Yadavas along with Krishna and Balarama, they decide to go to Shonitapura. So Kanyapure Daitaya Sukhamaramantam, Chainam Katanchana Babandhushi Sharva Bandhau Shri Naradokta Tadudhanta Duranta Roshaihi. So put a visarga at the end, comma. Next line, the is goes away. Tvam tasya shonitapuram yadubhir nyarundhaha.
Rajesh ji,
Yeah.
so is the Shonadapuram not in earth?
No. So there are multiple, because the way this is described is Bana, because the battle that is going to happen later on. Right? I mean, it could be. There's no exact definition of where it is, but when you look at the context of who this Bana is, the power he had, and the battle that is going to follow later, right? And this Chitralekha, because this Chitralekha, when she draws these people, right, she doesn't even draw anybody from Earth in the beginning, because she's drawing all these, what do you call, the people who demigods who are living in the various planets, right? She's drawing them first, because that's how they interact with. So my assumption that way is Shonitapura is probably not in the earthly plane.
Okay. Thank you.
Kanyapure dayitaya sukhamaramantam chainam katanchana babandhushi sharva bandhau Srinaradokta tadudanta duranta roshaihi tvam tasya shonitapuram yadubhir nyarundhaha.
Kanyapure daitaya sukhamaramantam chainam kadanchanak babandhushi sarvabandho Srinaradokta tadudanta durandaroshehi tam tasya shonitapuram yadubirnirundaha. Kanyapure daitaya sukhamaramantam chainam kadanchana babandhushi sarvabandho Srinaradokta tadudanta durandaroshehi tam tasya shonitapuram yadubirnirundaha.
Kanyapure Taitaya Sukhamaramantam चैनं कदञ्चन भवन्तु सर्वबन्तौ श्रीनारदोक्तततुतन्ततुरन्तरोषैः त्वं तस्य शोणितपुरं यदुभिर्न्यरुन्ताः कन्यापुरे तैतया सुकुमारमन्तं चैनं कदञ्चन भवन्तु सर्वबन्तौ श्रीनारदोक्तततुतन्ततुरन्तरोषैः त्वं तस्य शोणितपुरं यदुभिर्न्यरुन्ताः.
The next few things I'm going to say the meaning together later. So Puri Palash Shaila Priya Duhitru Nathosya Bhagavan Samam Bhuta Vratair Yadu Balam Ashankam. If you want to break it, Balam Ashankam Nirurudhe Mahaprano Bano Jhatiti Yuyudhanena Yuyudhe, comma Guhaha is there put F Guhaf Pradyumnena Tuamapi Purahantra Jagatishe. This one the tune changes, it goes into the 4-liner tune. Puri Palashaila Priyaduhitrunatosya Bhagavan Samam Bhutam Vratair Yadubalamashankam Nirurudhe Mahaprano Bhano Jhatiti Yudhanena Yudhe Guhaf Pradyumnena Tomapi Purahantra Jagatishe.
Puri Palir Shaila Priya Duhit
Duhit, yeah. So Puri Palash Shaila Priya Duhitr Natosya.
Oh, the tune, I missed the tune.
Yeah. Puri Palash Shaila Priya Duhitru Natosya Bhagavan.
Puri Palir Shaila Priya Duhitriyanadhosya Bhagavan Samam Bhuta Vratir Yadubalamashankam Nirurudhe Mahaprano Bhano Chatati Yuyadhanena Yuyude Guha Pradyupnena Tumapi Purahandra Jagatishe.
That first line, Anandji, that Duhitru. So it's like Duhitru Natosya.
Puri Palir Shaila Priya Duhitriya Nadhosya Bhagavan Samam Bhuta Vadir Yadubalamashankam Nirurudhe Mahaprano Bhano Chatati Yuyadhanena Yuyude Guha Pradyumne Tomapi Purahandra Jagatishe.
I think what is happening, I think you are saying Duhitriya, I think you are somehow that ya sound is coming there, that's why maybe that's not landing. It is Duhitr, that's it.
Duhitra, okay.
Yeah, Duhitr Natosya.
Okay.
Rajesh, இந்த சமம் பூத்த பிராத்தைஹின்னு இருக்கு இல்லையா, the he to irnakiடுமா?
Yeah, you put the ir to join it, yes.
Puri Balashailapriya Duhitrunathosya Bhagavan Samam Bhutavaratai Yadubalamashankam Nirurute Mahaprano Pano Jaditi Yuyute Guhaf Pradyumnena Twamabi Purahantra Jagatishe.
The second line, Revati, Bhuta Vratair,
Vratair.
Yeah.
Puri Balashailapriye Duhitrunathosya Bhagavan Samam Bhutavaratai, right?
Vratair, Bhuta Vratair.
Samam Bhutavaratai Yadupalamashankam Nirurute Mahaprano Pano Jaditi Yuyutanena Yuyute Guhaf Pradyumnena Twamabi Purahantra Jagatishe.
And the first letter mattum, I think Puri, it's just Puri, not
Puri.
long U.
Okay, Puri.
Stanza 6. Niruddha sheshastre mumuhushitavastren girishe dhruta bhuta bhitah pramata kulavirah pramatitah paraskandat kusuma sharabaneischa sachivah sakumbhando bhandam navamiva bhalena shubhibite. So I'll kind of say both the last previous two and the next one meaning together, and then we'll just do this stanza and we'll stop today. So remember who is guarding Bana's kingdom, right? Shiva himself is guarding. So Shiva is there, all his Bhuta Ganas are there, and here it says, like Skanda, Kartikeya. So all of Shiva's, everybody is guarding the city of Shonitapura. So all the entire Yadava army is coming, and then a big battle actually goes on between them, right? And then so it just goes on and on. And what happens is a lot of the people, the Bhuta Ganas, Bhutas, they all run away. And finally, what happens is this Shiva has this is something called as a Shiva Jwara, right? It is kind of like I don't know, I don't know what is the actual implication of it, but the definition of it, it says it is a 3 hands, 3 feet, and all that stuff. But it is supposed to be something which is extremely hot, right? So that Shiva Jwara is then sent out to attack against Krishna. And then Krishna in return, so this is actually a battle that goes between Shiva and Vishnu, right? Or Krishna at this point, actually. So Krishna then sends out what is called as a Vishnu Jwara. So Vishnu Jwara is something that is extremely cold. Something which is extremely cold is also very biting, right? So the Vishnu Jwara is happening. So this Shiva Jwara, which is sent out, is it gets overwhelmed by this Vishnu Jwara, and then it comes and it realizes that it cannot win against this. So this Shiva Jwara comes directly to Krishna and then falls at his feet and says that, what, I give up. Please help me out. Please protect me. And so he comes and says that. So Krishna says okay, and Shiva Jwara, nothing happens to it. So then this Bhana comes. So this Bhana now is coming with, he's got 1,000 arms, right? So essentially 2 arms is holding 1 bow and arrow as an example, means 500 weapons he comes with. So however, Krishna then goes to fight with him and chops off all his arms, right? And then when he chops off all his arms, then finally then Shiva is coming and telling Krishna that, listen, he's a big disciple of mine, and he has actually done, he's done some mistakes, but then he again became very proud when he had 1,000 arms and everything. So please forgive him, right? And I'll make sure that he does not commit anything bad going forward. So Krishna then says okay, and he says anyway this Bana is in the hierarchy of ancestry of Prahlada. So Krishna says anyways my commitment to Prahlada is I will not harm anybody of his thing. So he says all his 1,000 arms were reduced to 4 arms, but then he will continue to be one of your biggest of disciples. That is Shiva's biggest disciples. He will continue to be that, but then he's been humbled now, and then nothing will happen to him. So with that battle then comes to an end. So essentially, so that's, and then in Bhagavatam they say that whoever thinks of this or recites this will not get any, because the Jwara actually means fever. So there is some significance to the Shiva Jwara and Vishnu Jwara. I don't know what that significance is. So they treat it as like a creature, right? But maybe it is something else, right? So anyway, so this says that whoever thinks of it will not get this fever and all that. The battle between Shiva and Vishnu, and how the Vishnu Jwara won over the Shiva Jwara. So all of that is happening over 5, 6, and 7, right? All of that story is happening over that. So
Rajesh ji, is Bana somehow related with the Sahasra Kavacha?
no,
Okay.
yeah, but it's similar but not related. Yeah. So the Sahasra Kavacha, he had Sahasra Kavacham protections, right? So that was in the sense like one battle you have to fight for 1,000 years, and then you remove one Kavacham out.
Okay.
And then to remove the second Kavacham, you have to again do yoga for 1,000 years and come and then fight for 1,000 years, and the second Kavacham goes. This person just had 1,000 arms, and it could either be physical 1,000 arms, or it could just mean he had the power of 1,000 arms. It could be either of those, but it is described as having 1,000 arms. So Niruddha Sheshastre Mumuhushi Tavastrena Girishe, Druta Bhuta Bhitaha, so put a F, Bhitaf Pramata Kula Viraha, put a F again, Viraf Pramatitaha Paraskandat Skandaha, put a Ich sound, Skandah Kusuma Shara Baneishcha Sachivaha, Sa Kumbhando Bhandam Navamiva Balenashu Bhibide. Niruddha Sheshastre Mumuhushitavastre Nagirishe Druta Bhuta Bhitaf Pramatakula Viraf Pramatitah परास्कन्दत्स्कन्दः कुसुमशरबाणैश्च सचिवः सकुम्भाण्डो भाण्डं नवमिव बलेनाशु बिबिधे
निरुन्दाशेषास्त्रे तवास्त्रेण गिरीशे निरुद्धाशेषास्त्रे मुमुषितवास्त्रेण गिरिशे द्रुधा बोधा बीदा प्रथमकुलवीरा प्रमदिताः परस्कन्दास्कन्दः कुसुमशरबाणैश्च सजीव सकुम्भाण्डो भाण्डं नवमिव बलेनाशु बिबिधे.
The third line, Sachivaha at the end. It's a visarga, okay?
Oh, Sachivaha. निरन्दाशेषास्त्रे मुमुषितवस्तवास्त्रेण गिरिशे द्रुधा बोधा बीदा प्रथमकुलवीरा प्रमदिताः परास्कन्दास्कन्दः कुसुमशरबाणैश्च सजीवः सकुम्भाण्डो भाण्डं नवमिव बलेनाशु बिबिधे.
Honestly, that the second line, right? Pramatha. I think you said Prathama Kula. It's Pramatha Kula.
Pramatha Kula Veera.
Yeah.
निरुद्धा शेषात्रे मुमुहुषितवास्त्रेण गिरिशे वृथा भूता पीताः प्रमथकुलवीराः प्रमथिताः परास्कन्तत्स्कन्तः कुसुमशरबाणैश्च सशिवः सकुम्भाण्डो भाण्डं नवमिव बलेनासु बिबिधे निरुद्धा शेषात्रे मुमुहुषितवास्त्रेण गिरिशे धृता भूता पीताः प्रमथकुलवीराः प्रमथिताः परास्कन्तत्स्कन्दः कुसुमशरबाणैश्च सशिवः सकुम्भाण्डो भाण्डं नवमिव बलेनासु बिबिधे.
Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. End the class here. सान्ध्वानन्दावबोधात्मकमनुपमितं कालदेशावधिभ्यां निर्मुक्तं नित्यमुक्तं निगमशतसहस्रेण निर्भास्यमानम् अस्पष्टं दृष्टमात्रे पुनरुरुपुरुषार्थात्मकं ब्रह्मतत्त्वं तत्तावद्भाति साक्षात् गुरुपवनपुरे हन्त भाग्यं जनानां कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.
Rajesh, 1 second.
Yeah.
In the fifth sloga, the first line is, can I say one more time? First line.
Yeah, go ahead.
Puripalaşailapriya druhidnadosya bhagavan.
So that and duhitr, just try to say that slowly. Duhitr.
Duhitr.
Yeah.
Duhitr
natosya. So try that again.
Puripalaşailapriya duhitr. Correct. Duhitr nadosya bhagavan.
Correct. That's it. You just try to say that word slowly. Duhitr.
Duhitr. Okay.
That's why that's a clearly separate word. Priya is one word. Duhitr natosya.
Okay. Thank you, Rajesh.
ஒரு question ராஜேஷ், அது புரிபால தானே இல்ல புரிபாலா?
Pu is a short pu, re is a long re. Puri. Puri is just a ur, it's a city.
Puripala.
Okay.
I have seen this Amar Chitra Kathala. I have read this Aniruddha, Usha, you know, the படிச்சிருக்கேன் முன்னாடி.
Correct. ஆமா.
Chitralekha draws the picture and everything. So.
Correct. You're right. Yeah, even I read it long time back.
Yes.
Amar Chitra Kathala.
Very true.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.